Hello, welcome back. My name's Grandmaster Daniel Gormally. Welcome to my channel. So yesterday I played round one of Guernsey. I was playing against a guy called Ian Campbell, who I believe is from Liverpool. Well, I was chatting to him afterwards. He was born in 1949, so quite a long time ago. What you find actually in Guernsey, a lot of people regard it as a kind of a holiday tournament. Obviously, I don't really regard anything as a holiday tournament. I think if you dare to play, it's not really a holiday. Um, you're not really there to enjoy yourself. You're there for business. I wish it was different. I wish I did regard it as a holiday, but I think there's a difference between playing a tournament. For me, is never a holiday. I'm always nervous about the game and everything. It's a shame it's like that. But anyway, I'll show you the game. It's quite an interesting game. Um, so what did he play? Yeah, so he played this move B3, and it's quite a solid way to play for white. Obviously, black could, in theory, play a move like d5. It's just controlling the center. I played c5. Yeah, I mean, b6 is not the top move, but I just wanted to get a slightly uncompromised position because I thought something like this. I think he would have taken back with a pawn, actually. But if he takes back a knight, I was just a little bit afraid something like this would be a very solid and hard to win. Let's say he goes. I've seen Nakamura play these kind of positions as white, I think. In Title Tuesdays. Maybe knight d2 is a move, or knight c3. Very solid for, it's often the problem when you play low rated players, you're trying to win the game. And they play these very solid systems. How do you win against it? It's very difficult. Yeah, so here I went d6. So the standard move is d5. Um, just to say actually there was some kind of dispute about the prize money situation because in the Blitz they did a tie break, and so I think possibly the main tournament will not be the prizes will not be divided up on tie break. So if you share with somebody and they have a better tie break than you on chess results, you'll get the same prize, which I think is the way it should always be. I don't know why all tournaments aren't like that. I think if you share with someone, unless there's an actual tie break in terms of Blitz, you should just get the same prize as them. You know, you shouldn't have a situation where they win like £500, you win £100 because your tiebreak's slightly worse because you're the opponents you played scored less points than the opponents someone else played. I mean, to me, that's just completely ridiculous. I don't know who created that situation. I can't think of a single chess player who was ever in favour of that situation. Just feels like something that organisers invented just to piss chess players off. But obviously, Guernsey, they're good organisers. But I think on the continent, they generally had this rule about. I remember I played a tournament in France and I was really upset because I played a blitz tournament. I travelled with two other players and we all got the same score. And I got 7 out of 9. I lost to one of them or something, and I ended up winning nothing. And I needed the money, and they like won some cash. And I was really upset, and I was like threw a hissy fit, and I said, "Oh, you need to give me some of your prize or this." I wouldn't do that now, but yeah, it was kind of upsetting. So yeah, anyway, that's my kind of bugbear of the day. Kind of, he went knight c3 anyway, so yeah, I wasn't sure if queen c2 was the best move there, but it's kind of solid. I thought you'd take out a knight here. It was more like a solid strategy and put the rook on d1. Maybe later he can even play e4. Not exactly sure what I'm doing here, to be honest. So I was thinking about going knight e5 because I was slightly afraid to go bishop f3 and exchange off this light square bishop. But to be honest, even if you did allow this, that's perfectly fine. I mean, you could shut me down with a move like a4, shut down the b5 break, but then you've still got the d5 central breaks in your pocket. So some move like rook c8 would come into the equation. Alternative, I was actually going to play here knight e5 just to prevent bishop f3 or discourage it, and then go a6. I felt like the position was about equal, but at some point later he goes e4 with a knight on e5, so I'm not sure that's that great. So he took with a pawn, then I went d5. So all these moves, yeah, say that I was analysing this position with Keith Harcourt. He said I should keep tension with queen c7, which I think is correct. Probably. And later on do something, but I went here because I thought there's some tactical justification for doing this. And in general, it's not such a bad idea actually. Just to leave him with the hanging pawns, you get a dynamically unclear position. He doesn't really want to take here because that allows bishop takes f3, doubling his pawns. So he took with a pawn, which is standard. Yeah, and this is where what I'd missed earlier was here. Suddenly, actually, this is no good at all because he goes queen b3, hit the rook, right? I think queen e2 is less convincing, even though that hits the pawn and the rook. I go queen c8, and then I'm threatening to take. So like here would work out in my favour. But he plays queen b3, and if I go here, he goes knight b5. Already I'm busted. Because if I move the rook, he takes on a7, knight jumps into c6. It's really bad news for black, so I can't allow that variation. So in this position, I didn't take, I went queen c7, which is a sensible move. And he went queen b3, and again, if I take and take, e7 is now hanging. So that's no good. So I went rook e8. I was wondering if he might try something like knight g5 and then go for some hack, but as he said later, it's not really in his style to do stuff like that, you know. You know, when you're playing like older player, they're kind of more, but they tend to be more positional. They're not going to go for crazy sacrifices, generally speaking. Obviously, depends who you play. But he went knight b5, which is very sensible. I wondered if his idea was to go d5, actually. That was kind of a move I was expecting, even though that gives me the c5 square. But he went a4, which again is reasonably sensible. A tough position. Actually, I think the engine says here, sorry, I'm yawning here, I'm very tired. The engine says the best move is knight e4, possibly. Why is knight e4 a good move? It's hard to say. I don't really understand this position. Am I threatening knight d6? Not really, because c4 is so well defended. c4 is now no longer a problem for him. But maybe I might go e5, actually. That might come into the equation, trying to grab some squares. And if he goes d5 and maybe drop this knight on e4 back to c5 and then push e4, that could come into the equation. Although when he goes d5, my bishop on b7 is very limited, so that's another issue. But instead I went e6, which wasn't terrible. He went knight c2, and here again maybe knight e4 was the best. I went knight h5, which is probably not a very good move. My idea was if he goes here, I'm going to go knight f4. It's not a terrible move. I mean, sometimes here you can even play a move like bishop h6, or maybe even bishop h6 here was also possible on one of the computer's moves. It even recommends h5 in positions like this, actually, which looks weird. Doesn't look very normal, but yeah, it's easy, you know, it's easy to conclude that when you analyze the computers, they're playing a different game to us. You know, they come up with moves that we don't really consider, like h5 here. I mean, I was putting my knight on h5, which is more human way to do it. But the problem is he goes g3. Now, the only danger with g3 is he soften up his diagonal. So this bishop, this was my idea really, this bishop's become more relevant. I probably should have gone queen a8 immediately if I was going to play queen a8 at any point. That was my original idea, but then I thought he might go knight e5. I didn't like that so much. No, hang on. Yeah, knight e5 is possible because here there's queen b6, which is annoying. wins a pawn. This is all the problem, was this b6 pawn. So I went knight e4, thinking, well, that's not too bad. It's a solid enough move. Sometimes you just want to make solid moves. You plod along, you see what happens, you wait for the opponent to commit. He went knight d2, which is quite reasonable. Yeah, and here I probably should have just taken. And it's actually staying stuff like this is playable. The problem is I didn't see a follow-up after knight d2. I didn't see moves like h5, and I was looking at knight f6 and thinking, well, that just drops b6. It doesn't really help me. So, or queen c7 is maybe another option. Just redeveloping the queen. But I went knight g5, which I don't think was a very good move. He could even consider h4 here. And then something like this is very unclear. Maybe good for white because bishop g4. And stuff like this doesn't really work, I don't think. But he went bishop f1, which wasn't terrible. I should have gone knight f3 here. This is where I blundered. I went queen a8, really bad move. And as soon as I went queen a8, I was like, what are you doing, man? This is crazy. Because the one move I'd actually was calculating earlier was d5. Thinking we didn't quite work earlier, but then you forget. This is a problem. Often you blunder because you forget about moves you saw before. You mentally dismiss them in previous calculations, and then they reappear, which is the case here. I suddenly realised at the board, I was like, what if we go to d5? I'm in deep doo-doo, right? Because, for example, let's show a variation. If I take, I now have the e4 square for the knight if he goes h4, right? So h4, knight e4, knight takes, you can take with a rook. But the problem is you can go knight g4 here. And then we calculated a variation like this, h4. We looked at this in the post-mortem. And you can hardly come up with a king. You're going to run into some kind of queen g7 move, Petrosian-esque, I guess, or just something else would probably be very strong as well. So you have to come back. And now he's even got moves like, we looked at bishop h3 in a post-mortem, which looks quite scary. But knight e4 is very dangerous. And if I take rook, is coming down. I think this is what the computer recommends. It says that white is winning. So very bad position for black. So I suddenly saw this and I thought, well, hang on a minute. If he goes d5, my dart squares are getting opened up. I'd like to go e5. If the knight wasn't on g5, I would play e5. But now it runs into h4, the knight's trapped. In fact, that is his threat. He's threatening to go h4 and trap the knight. So I was very relieved when he didn't go d5. He played h4 here. And now, quite quickly, he blundered. I was expecting rook d2. I thought the position was about equal. Maybe black is, well, I mean, I'm a stronger player, on paper, so I would hope that I would go on to win the game, but it would have been a tough battle. But he blundered here, he went here. Forgetting, he played that move quite quickly, and I took. Coming to b3, so if he takes on a8, I take on b3, I'll rook up. So he took that, I played queen b8. Now completely winning for black. e5. Yeah, I thought he might try some crazy punt, like bishop h3, actually. And f5, and maybe even just take. And yeah, the computer says it's not enough. It says that black is winning. But like when you're in trouble, you just try anything. I thought he might just try that, just to try and mix it up. Because now, if he doesn't do anything special over the next few moves, he's going to be losing. And I went here, he went here, I took. And I took and he resigned because he realised that after this, well, this didn't happen, but he'd seen that this is now winning for black, for example, here. I can take on a4 immediately, but the computer actually says what you do is sadistic. You just go king f8, prove the king first. Maybe prevent any rook d7 counterplay, right? Because this pawn is always hanging. Like, how does he defend the pawn? He probably has to go rook d6 to kind of induce me to take it. I mean, I could maybe even think about rook b8 is even possible, but now you probably take. But now you're kind of like a tempo up, and you're hitting c4. And if he comes back, Yeah, he could do this, I guess, but I guess something like rook c7 is good. I'm now 2 pawns up. I'm just going to march the a pawn probably. I mean, what does the computer say about this? Yeah, it says it's totally busted. I thought he'd play this on, to be honest. I was slightly surprised he resigned. Because, you could play it on, but yeah, I was happy to win. Talked about the game afterwards. Nice guy actually. Um, but yeah, I think you get a lot of older players playing in these sort of tournaments. It's just a nice little holiday vacation for them. They get to see, like for example, tournaments like Paynton, are kind of similar because it's down on the coast. It's like in the south coast of England, Torbay, and you get quite a lot of elderly players. Trying to think of other tournaments might, but Scarborough, like back in the day, was kind of similar as well, and Hastings to some degree as well. Yeah, like a lot of these tournaments on the coast, you get a lot of elderly players, and obviously Guernsey is kind of on the coast, right? Because it's well, it is on the coast because it's an island. It's not very far to the coast. Wherever you stand in Guernsey, you're like maybe 7 miles from the coast at the max, just a few miles from the coast, right? Generally, the main road through the island kind of runs along the coastal route. I think it's only a few miles wide, the island, but yeah. So basically, today I got another tough opponent. Let's see how the game goes. Just carry on the good form. Feel like I'm playing reasonably well. But yeah, that was the round one game, and at the moment, there's a few developments in the chess world. Magnus Carlsen is playing in Qatar Masters. We've already seen he's lost to somebody, 2500 rated. But I think he's a point behind. There's 4 rounds left. I think Nakamura's probably going to play the guy who's leading. I think there's somebody on who's only dropped half a point or something crazy, right? Some Indian player, Naralian or something. Nakamura probably playing with White today. Don't think there's any rest days in an open, which is tough as well. That makes it tough because it's very, very tiring if you're just playing good players after good players. So the younger guys are benefiting. So Carlson probably needs to win the tournament. I would say he probably needs at least 3.5, maybe 4 out of 4. And in US Championships, Caruana's winning nice win against Neiman. Neiman's having an up and down tournament. Mishra's doing well, but yeah, that's basically the state of play going into round two of Guernsey. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like and subscribe. Blah de blah blah blah.